Austria today conjures images of alpine beauty, snow-capped peaks, lush valleys, and charming villages nestled among the mountains. It's a country renowned for its breathtaking landscapes and the serenity of its countryside, a place where nature and culture seem to exist in perfect harmony. The world knows Austria for its cultural refinement, the grandeur of Vienna's concert halls, the legacy of Mozart and Strauss, and the rich traditions of coffee houses and intellectual salons. But beneath this elegant surface, Austria's 20th century story is far more tangled and fraught with contradiction. For decades after World War II, Austria cast itself as the first victim of Nazi aggression, a small, peace-loving nation overrun by its powerful German neighbour. This narrative became central to Austria's post-war identity, shaping how generations understood their country's past. Yet, beneath this narrative lies a deeper, more uncomfortable truth. Austria's path through World War II was marked not only by victimhood, but also by willing complicity. Many Austrians actively participated in the Nazi regime, while others suffered under its rule. After the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the end of World War I, Austria was left a small, uncertain republic. Many Austrians felt adrift, searching for a new sense of purpose and identity. The trauma of lost empire and economic hardship led some to look north to Germany for renewed strength and belonging. The idea of Anschluss, unification with Germany, was not simply imposed from outside. It was a dream nurtured by many Austrians themselves, who saw in it the promise of stability, prosperity, and restored national pride. Propaganda and popular movements fueled this desire, making the idea of joining Germany a powerful force in Austrian society. When Adolf Hitler, himself an Austrian by birth, returned to his homeland in 1938, he was greeted by massive crowds in Vienna's Heldenplatz. For many, his arrival was seen as the fulfillment of a long-held national destiny, a moment of hope and excitement, even as others watched with dread. The arrival of German troops was met with both jubilation and fear, celebration and anxiety. The streets filled with people, some cheering, some silent, some deeply apprehensive. This moment revealed a nation divided but far from passive or powerless in its fate. Austria's story is not one of simple victimhood. It is the story of a society wrestling with its own choices, its hopes and fears, and the consequences that followed. The legacy of these years continues to shape Austrian memory and identity today. Understanding this duality of both complicity and suffering is essential to grasping Austria's modern identity. Today, Austrians reflect on this past with a mix of pride, regret, and a commitment to never forget. The journey from complicity to neutrality, from division to unity, is a lesson in the complexities of national memory, and a reminder that history is rarely as simple as it first appears. The Anschluss of 1938 was less a conquest than a celebration for many Austrians. German troops were welcomed with cheers, flowers, and a sense of homecoming. Hitler's triumphant entry into Vienna was met with genuine enthusiasm, not just fear. The subsequent plebiscite, though rigged, reflected a real groundswell of support. But this union unleashed a wave of anti-Semitic violence, often led by Austrians themselves, exposing a dark undercurrent in society. The myth of Austria as a mere victim crumbles when faced with the reality of widespread complicity and active participation in Nazi crimes. In 1938, Austria vanished as a nation, its sovereignty erased almost overnight as Nazi Germany annexed it in a move known as the Anschluss. The world watched as Austria's borders disappeared from the map, and its people were swept into a new, darker chapter of history. Austria was reborn as the Ostmark, no longer an independent country, but an integral part of the Nazi war machine. The very identity of the nation was rewritten, its cities and towns now cogs in Hitler's vast empire. Its factories, once symbols of Austrian industry, now churned out weapons and vehicles for the Third Reich. This production was powered by the suffering of thousands of forced laborers brought in from across occupied Europe who toiled under brutal conditions to fuel the Nazi war effort. The Mauthausen concentration camp became a chilling symbol of Austria's role in the machinery of death and exploitation. Here, tens of thousands perished, victims of inhumanity and systematic cruelty, their suffering etched into the nation's memory. Over 1 million Austrians served in the Wehrmacht and SS, with notorious figures like Adolf Eichmann and Ernst Kaltenbrunner at the very heart of Nazi atrocities. Their actions left a dark stain on Austria's history, as many Austrians became both perpetrators and enablers of the regime's crimes. Yet, even in these grim times, a small but determined resistance risked everything to oppose the regime. These brave men and women distributed leaflets, sabotaged Nazi operations, and held secret meetings, offering a glimmer of hope amid the darkness. Their courage, though limited in impact, stands as a testament to the enduring possibility of dissent and to the human spirit's refusal to be completely crushed by tyranny. Austria's wartime legacy is one of both deep involvement in Nazi crimes and rare, remarkable resistance. The nation's story is marked by both complicity and the bravery of a few who dared to defy. The scars of this era would shape Austria's post-war soul, leaving a legacy of reflection, reckoning, and the long, difficult process of rebuilding both its cities and its conscience. In 1945, Austria lay in ruins, divided into 4 occupation zones by the Allies. Vienna, split among the US, Britain, France and the Soviets, became a stage for Cold War intrigue. The city's center was jointly administered, with soldiers from all 4 powers patrolling its streets. Life was a daily struggle. Scarcity, black markets and uncertainty ruled. The Soviet presence loomed large, fueling fears of permanent division. Yet under Allied supervision, Austria began to rebuild its democracy and institutions. The occupation's hardships forged a determination to reclaim independence. The divided capital became a powerful symbol of Austria's precarious place between East and West. As the Cold War deepened, Austria gravitated toward the West, embracing the Marshall Plan and democratic ideals. The Soviets, wary of losing influence, dismantled factories and backed the Communist Party, hoping to pull Austria into their orbit. Austria found itself a pawn in a tense East-West standoff, its fate tied to superpower rivalry. Soviet vetoes and suspicions stalled any move towards full sovereignty. Austrian leaders realized that joining the Western Bloc might mean permanent division, as in Germany. The dream of unity seemed out of reach, until a new strategy emerged. Pragmatism led to the idea of neutrality, a compromise to satisfy both East and West. Neutrality became Austria's ticket to freedom. In 1955, a breakthrough Austria pledged permanent neutrality in exchange for the withdrawal of all occupying forces. The Austrian State Treaty, signed in Vienna's Belvedere Palace, restored full independence and banned any future union with Germany. Jubilant crowds celebrated as the last foreign soldiers departed. Neutrality became the cornerstone of Austrian identity, a promise of peace and a shield against division. Austria aligned with the West in values and economy, but stayed out of military alliances. Vienna emerged as a bridge between East and West, hosting international organizations and peace talks. Neutrality was not just policy, it was a national ethos, shaping Austria's role on the world stage. The nation had finally reclaimed its destiny. For decades, Austria clung to the comforting myth of being Hitler's first victim, sidestepping its own complicity in the horrors of the Second World War. This narrative allowed many to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths about the nation's role during the Nazi era, and for years the silence was rarely broken in public life or private conversation. But this carefully constructed story began to unravel in the 1980s with the Waldheim affair, when revelations about the former UN Secretary-General's wartime past shocked the country and the world. The controversy forced a painful national reckoning, as Austrians were confronted with evidence that challenged their collective memory. Public debate erupted over Austria's true wartime role, sparking heated arguments in parliament, on the streets and in classrooms across the country. The silence around collaboration and responsibility was shattered, and for the first time, many Austrians began to openly discuss the darker chapters of their history. Monuments and memorials to Holocaust victims and resistors appeared throughout the country, serving as public acknowledgements of suffering and loss. School curricula were rewritten to include honest accounts of Austria's Nazi past, ensuring that new generations would learn the full story. In 1991, Chancellor Vranitzky formally acknowledged Austria's shared guilt, decisively abandoning the old victim narrative and marking a turning point in the nation's self-understanding. Today, Austria's confrontation with its past is ongoing, an evolving process that continues to shape its society and politics. The conversation is complex, sometimes contentious, but it is more honest than ever before, reflecting a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. The journey from complicity to neutrality and finally to self-examination is a testament to the evolving nature of national identity and the courage it takes to confront the past. Facing history's darkness is not about assigning blame to a new generation, but about learning, understanding, and building a more responsible future together. Through education, dialogue, and remembrance, Austria's youth are encouraged to engage with the past and shape a society that values truth and accountability. Austria's story is a reminder that national memory is not fixed. It is always a work in progress, shaped by those willing to look back in order to move forward.